In remembrance of 9/11, I thought it would be fitting to commemorate a hero that died on September 11th, 2001. I was researching who I would like to commemorate, and I came across a guy who is credited with rescuing over 2,700 people. I had never heard of him, and I want to tell you his story. It's quite remarkable. In 1939, Rick Rescorla was born in Cornwall, Britain. During World War II, his hometown served as headquarters for the 175th Infantry Regiment of the 29th Infantry Division. Young Rescorla idolized the American soldier. In 1957, he enlisted in the British Army and served in both Cyprus and Northern Rhodesia. In 1963, after moving to Brooklyn, New York, where he lived in a YMCA, he enlisted in the United States Army. He completed basic at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and OCS at Fort Benning, Georgia. After graduating and being commissioned as a second lieutenant, in April 1965, he was assigned as a platoon leader in Bravo Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile. In November of 1965, he went to Vietnam. His platoon was dropped into the Ia Drang Valley. The Battle of Ia Drang, known as the Valley of Death, was the first major battle between the United States and the North Vietnamese Army. It was tragic. A total of 305 Americans and 3,561 North Vietnamese died in the Battle of Ia Drang. The bloody battle was described in the book and movie We Were Soldiers Once and Young, co-authored by Lieutenant General Hal Moore and war correspondent Joe Galloway. Rick Rescorla is the gaunt, unshaven soldier pictured on the book's jacket cover carrying his M16 rifle with bayonet fixed. Lieutenant General Moore described him as the best platoon leader I ever saw. Rescorla's men nicknamed him Hardcore for his bravery in battle. They revered him for his compassion and his humor. After his service in Vietnam, Rick returned to the U.S. and obtained a law degree. He actually taught criminal justice at the University of South Carolina for 3 years before leaving there in 1985 and moving to New Jersey to work for Dean Witter Reynolds at their offices in the World Trade Center in Manhattan. After the 1988 bombing of the Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, Rick worried about a terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. So in 1990, he assessed the security and co-authored a report to the Port Authority insisting on the need for more security in the parking garage. The recommendations were not taken. Then in 1993, terrorists detonated a truck bomb in the World Trade Center parking garage, not 30 feet from where he had predicted it would happen. During the pandemonium of the blast, Rick jumped up on a desk and threatened to drop his pants if people didn't chill out and listen to him. Then he proceeded to very orderly evacuate every person in the building, and he did not leave the building until every person was out. In 1997, Dean Witter merged with Morgan Stanley, and the company occupied 22 floors in the South Tower and several floors in the North Tower. Rescorla's office was on the South Tower's 44th floor. He strongly believed that the towers were a target for terrorists, and the next attack would be a plane crashing into one of the towers. He, in fact, recommended that to his superiors that they move out of Manhattan. Of course, they didn't. However, he did have plenty of clout with them. And so, at his insistence, they conducted evacuation drills every 3 months from the lowest paid employee to the highest paid employee. They would march two abreast down all the stairs every 3 months and completely evacuate. What an amazing prediction. What an amazing gift this was for him to be able to have done this with all the employees. It proved, of course, to be very, 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 very important. September 11th, 2001. Rick was not supposed to be there that day. He was supposed to be on vacation abroad, attending a wedding of a relative. But true to his compassionate nature, he stayed to take the place and cover a shift of a coworker who needed to be out of the country. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 struck Tower 1. Rick, following his evacuation plan, ignored building officials' advice that they stay put. He began the orderly evacuation of all of Morgan Stanley's 2,700 employees on the 20 floors of Tower 2 and 1,000 employees in Tower 1. Rescorla sang through his bullhorn, "God Bless America," other military and Cornish songs to keep the evacuees calm as they left the building. By the time he had most of the 2,700 employees out of the building, United Airlines Flight 175 hit Tower 2 at 9:03 a.m. After leading most of his fellow employees to safety, he returned to the building to rescue others inside. One of his colleagues told him he needed to evacuate. Rescorla said, "As soon as I make sure everyone else is out." His wife, Susan, watched on television as a United Airlines jet carved through her husband's tower, and she dissolved into tears. Her phone rang. It was Rick. He said, "I don't want you to cry. I have to evacuate my people now. If something happens to me, I want you to know that you made my life." She sobbed. The phone went dead. According to witnesses, Rescorla was seen as high as the 72nd floor, still evacuating people. He was last seen heading up the stairs of the 10th floor of the collapsing Tower 2. His body was never recovered. Today, we honor Rick Rescorla. His story of self-sacrifice should not just be remembered by watching this video. It shouldn't be a passing thought, but his memory should be cherished, especially by the children and grandchildren of the survivors who would never be here today without his sacrifice. But how? How do we cherish his memory? How do we make sure his ultimate sacrifice is not forgotten? Jesus said in John 15:13, "Greater love has no one than this, that to lay down one's life for his friends." Colonel Rescorla's friends were his fellow countrymen. He probably didn't know intimately each of the 2,700 people that he led to safety. But I don't think it mattered to him. One thing is abundantly clear. He did not do what he did for himself. Otherwise, he would still be here. This is the purest kind of hero, a person who is motivated by complete selflessness. This is love. My friends, the opposite of love is not hate, it's selfishness. So I ask again, what can we who are living do to best honor the patriots like Rick Rescorla, who paid the ultimate price, not just on 9/11, but in all the wars our country has fought? The pinnacle of our nation's greatness echoes to the great sacrifices that were made for our liberty. We, the people, who have been endowed by our Creator with life, carrying that torch of liberty, not in pursuit of our own self-serving desires, but rather in the journey of love. Love, the very essence of a self-sacrificing God who beckons us to partake in a personal relationship with himself. How do we honor the heroes who died for our freedom? Love. Live selflessly. This is how Colonel Rick Rescorla lived. This is how Jesus lived. Let us live this day and the rest of our lives and using the great liberty that we have been given to live a life of love.